Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
Ted.
And today we do a video response to DMG Info.
How you are starting your campaign like the slowest goddamn coach train to nowhere.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So recently we had our good friend DMG Info of the 7D system, as well as
DMG Info channel.
the DMG Info channel. And Gareth do a guest appearance on our channel, Nerdarchy. He's done a few in the past, and I always enjoy his videos. And you guys, whether you enjoy them or not, you always have a lot to say about them. So that is for sure.
We're less than 24 hours after you launched it, and there's already 162 comments. 30.
The interactions is close to like 500 if it isn't above 500.
Nice.
So yeah, you guys definitely felt very strongly about it. One is, a lot of the stuff he does is for comedic effect, and you may or may not find him funny. I do. I get a kick out of his stuff, and I believe, and believe it or not, that is his real voice. He's not really putting on a voice. I think he has a little bit of an odd accent because he is from South Africa originally and lives in Australia. So he might have a mingling there.
And a world traveler at the same time.
Well, yeah, you could say that as well.
In my opinion, Gareth's videos are to be thought-invoking. So he wants you to think about how you're doing your game and make sure that you're, as he says, starting it off with a bang. If you're going to take 45 minutes to go through and meet every character and do a description and this and that, it's not going to set the hook. And that's the message that he's really getting at. Yeah,
and let's face it, we all do it. We've done that so many times in the past that it can get kind of old. And I guess, but at the same time, I have to agree with him. It is a lot more fun if you start like a movie. Are you gonna is the game gonna lose something because, as I've heard in the comments, you're not gonna be vested in the other characters. You don't know what they look like. His point is, it's not like you're going to go through the whole campaign without ever going into that stuff. He said it with different things, it's really about not doing an info dump. And if you combine that philosophy with you believe in doing a session 0, then session 0 is when you guys should have all kind of talked about your characters. And you guys should know about each other's characters, unless you do a session 0 and people come with different characters than they talked about or something like that.
Which happens.
It can happen, but for the most part, it shouldn't happen with all your players. So if you did a good session 0, you kind of have an idea about the other characters as a player. Maybe not so much as a character, but that being said, your characters actually sing, so it doesn't actually have to be described in game, right? Because so they know, right? It doesn't have to be narrated.
All right, so Ted's playing a cleric, so I know that he's going to look, kind of cleric-y unless he decides to go with something off-kilter. Is a trickery cleric?
Well,
right.
Not even that. I feel like if you did a session 0, you're talking about backstories and connections to other characters. It's going to go deeper than Ted's playing a cleric. Or Ted's a human. Yeah, I feel like more, hopefully, if you're doing your session 0, there's a lot of back and forth and you guys are talking about, how you guys are playing the game, what the dynamics are going to be, how all the characters know each other. I'm probably going to start my game tonight, and I want to start it with an action scene. Just because, Gareth kind of inspired me. I'm not going to say it's the first time I've done that, but I do believe it's a lot more fun when there's stuff going on and the players don't have any time to think. They just have to react to the scenario, and it just makes things more interesting. Even my long-running campaign I have going on right now started with half the party broken into thirds. One of them was setting camp to examine this magical phenomenon that's going on. Another part of them actually fell through the phenomenon. At the same time, I had the last part of the party, actually trying to break into the camp to steal books. which they did do. So like there was all this stuff going on at the same time that made things a lot more interesting. And as far as like describing and narrating, well, some of it gets done by the DM, especially if the party isn't like together per se yet. And the other part did happen because we got together for a session 0, and for a lot of players didn't know each other when we started that game as like a meet and greet, so everyone kind of had an idea of what everybody else was playing, so that wasn't really a big deal. And then like things start happening in the camp, and the goblins get spotted, so like you got little goblins running through your camp, tearing through your tents, so that gets described. Next thing you know, there's there's Dragonborn falling through a portal, chased by an ooze monster. So like, you could do the trope, well, you guys are in the tavern looking for a job. And if you play that, there's nothing wrong with playing that way.
It's just not going to be as compelling as opposed to action. Action starts it off. And I have, since I've done Nerdarchy, I've seen, changes in the way a lot of things are done, including the way I run a game. And in fact, if you look at our channel, there's a couple live games that I did online with the fans, and by me starting at 2 different points, it changed the scope of the adventure for that evening. I actually had one campaign where I was giving them the job rather than starting them off at the job, and they took like 45 minutes of investigations, and I'm going to do stuff in town that didn't really heighten the adventure in any way, shape, or form. Whereas
that was like never fucking again, never.
And it's just as much my fault as players and whatever have you, because I wasn't properly guiding. So the next time that I run the game, I'm like, all right, boom, you're here. And
what do you do?
This just happens. And somebody actually tried to be like, well, I don't do that. It's like, well, tonight you do. What? So I had to force them into the situation to get the adventure kicking, because I didn't want to go through another, hem and haw session. I didn't want to go through things because we only get so much time, that the fans, they actually, want to be a part of our game, and therefore it's up to us to provide a good game for them. And if you're spending all this time, shopping and whatever have you, that's not...
we got to make a distinction. There's a huge distinction between running a campaign and running a one-shot. A one-shot pretty much always has to be like a punch in the face, get started, get in there. You've got X amount of time to start the game and finish the game, so it's got to happen.
Right.
Campaign is different. You have more flexibility. You can hem and haw. Tonight's adventure could take 2 sessions instead of 1. Yeah, all that's fine, but it comes down to the narrative and the storytelling is whether you think that's a fun way to play the game or not. And like I said, I've done both, and Ted's done both, and we've all done, the same tropes, start in the tavern, or let's introduce our characters, what do they look like? You got 7 players, right? They each take 15, 20 minutes to describe their character. By the time you get back to the first guy, over an hour has gone by. You guys haven't done dick. And this guy, you have to nudge him and wake him up.
It's like, huh?
I mean, sometimes you get some good role-playing in there, and that can be fun, but for the most part, I don't feel like it adds to the overarching campaign, where a lot of that stuff could have kind of come out, in gameplay.
Well, you have to look at the way real life happens. You don't introduce yourself and give a 15-minute dissertation about your childhood and your parentage and where you were 10 years ago versus now. That doesn't really happen in real life unless you're in a situation that really dictates that. If you're at a tavern with a group of strangers, you might talk about what's currently going on now. And then when excitement happens, you guys get bonded together, and then you might wind up exploring different things. So if you really want your campaign to be more realistic, then the punch in the face, let's get started with the action, your characters will develop the bond that will be necessary to actually share that backstory information.
Or, or if you really have to do introductions, keep it to a sentence. Like, figure out how to describe your character in one sentence as the player, so that it literally takes like 30 seconds and everyone can go around.
And our group, our gameplays, we do that. We go around the table, everybody says who they are and what they're playing, and it's just as much for everyone at the table, if not more so for the audience that might be watching, because we record our games. But beyond that, doing that expedites that process. It reaffirms everybody at the table. Okay, that's right. David's playing Thanos. Why do I keep forgetting that name? Okay, all right, let's go.
Well, I don't think we'd ever do that if we weren't recording. That's literally for the recording. Like, if we were playing a regular game and at Ted's house and we weren't recording the game, we would never introduce our characters again. Like who you're playing with, write it down, whatever.
That's true.
That's definitely a difference between recording your games and not recording your games.
Yes, it's for recording, but I guarantee you, like, I know I write down a cheat sheet of who's at the table and who their character names are, but I know there's some people that don't, and they've been like, hey, sitting next to me, what's so and so's name again? And I can reference it. But by having that descriptor, that thing at the beginning, you know what's going on.
Well, the other thing too, like if the DM does a 2 to 3 minute recap of what happened last time, and he like calls out the characters and players in it as well, and when by recap, it should really be like a television series, right? If you watch when they do their recaps, it's always very specific. It's relevant to what's actually going to happen next. And, I actually never knew that until someone pointed it out. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I believe it was Barker from Be a Better Game Master. And he was talking about, doing game recaps. But that doing that quick recap at the beginning can be like that same kind of effect of, starting off with the action, because you can like lead right into it, and then you shouldn't have to be introducing the characters every time. Obviously, it's just the beginning of the campaign, and that's going to happen. But DMG brought up this interesting idea of, why not start at the end of the adventure instead of the beginning? I think it's a cool idea. Would you want to do it every time? No, but for a change of pace, it's an awesome idea. You can even give your players a little bit of agency there, and have them tell you beforehand something, an adventure they just came off of something. Or as the GM, you can just kind of take a little bit of control and go, oh, well, you've all gathered to receive your reward from blah, 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 right? And this is what happens. And that's when everything happens. You guys are in the king's court, ready to get your medals. The music is playing, and the roof blows off. And a huge explosion. Why not? It's fun. I've started games with dragons making strafing runs on a Spelljammer ship, and I don't think my players were upset that there was no getting into it. It was a boom action. Explosions are a great way to start off a game as well.
So there are a multitude of different ways to run your game. And if you sit there and you say, okay, well, I'm going to just constantly ask the players, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? It takes away a lot of your power, and it gives too much onus. Whereas if you want to literally jump ship, okay, last time this is what happened. You completed this adventure. The plan was to go back to town and, blah, 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 blah. You could find out what they wanted to do with their downtime. And then literally the next session, okay, yes, all of your downtime stuff got taken care of. It's now 3 weeks later. You find yourself at the entrance to the dungeon of blah, 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 and go. Well, you've bypassed what actually happened on the downtime. That's not all that much fun for those who didn't actually have anything to do. You bypassed the let's go find the hook to we've got the hook, we've traveled to where we need to go, and we're there ready to start. So you can jump right to the action stuff and save everyone's time.
I believe my the Tampa game I did, the fan Tampa game I did, was a one shot, and the people went around, introduced themselves, and then said quick blurb about their characters. It was really fast. The first thing to start off with was with a scream, but then I felt like more character and development came out of those characters from actually playing the game than did from them doing an intro. And it also creates more memorable interactions and memories of those characters than if they were to just explain it instead of seeing the stuff happen. Like the Tabaxis that were afraid of water but refused to admit they're afraid of water were hilarious in that game.
I had a Tabaxi in my my cruise game that was afraid of water, but I didn't really give him a choice. They were on a boat.
Well, sure, there's always a choice. He had spells to combat that, I believe. Control water just to keep the water away from him. So there's always a choice. But yeah, what are you guys doing to make your games more interesting? I know you guys, some of you were huge fans of the DMG Info video. Other of you guys, not so much. I think it has its place. I think it's a fun idea, and you should give it a chance in your game. Let us know in the comments below. All right, like, share, and subscribe.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.